Growing up without emotional love doesn't just hurt during childhood. It quietly reshapes the way your brain develops, and those changes don't disappear when you grow older. They follow you into adulthood, influencing how you think, feel, and relate to others. If you didn't consistently receive emotional warmth, affection, or validation as a child, there are very specific patterns you're likely still carrying today. Let's talk about what actually happens beneath the surface. Before we begin, if content like this resonates with you and helps you understand yourself a little better, take a moment to subscribe and share where you're watching from. It genuinely helps keep this kind of psychology content going. Now let's dive in. Developmental psychology shows us that when a child grows up without consistent love, whether due to emotional neglect, unavailable caregivers, or affection that was given only under certain conditions, the brain adapts to survive. Psychologists referred to the resulting emotional injuries as attachment wounds. These wounds don't simply fade with time. Instead, they shape how you see yourself, how safe relationships feel to you, and how you move through the world as an adult. Here are 5 ways those early experiences often show up later in life. First, hypervigilance in relationships. If love felt unpredictable when you were young, your nervous system learned that connection could disappear at any moment. As an adult, this shows up as constantly scanning for signs of rejection or abandonment. You analyze messages, notice tiny shifts in tone, and brace yourself for emotional withdrawal. Even in relationships that are stable and healthy, this isn't overthinking or paranoia. It's your brain doing exactly what it learned to do in childhood. Stay alert in emotionally uncertain environments. Psychology calls this anxious attachment, and it develops when early caregiving was inconsistent. Your mind is still trying to predict and control what once felt uncontrollable. Second, difficulty receiving love or compliments. When someone says something kind to you, your first reaction may be discomfort, disbelief, or the urge to brush it off. This happens because growing up without love often creates a deep internal belief that says, "I am not worthy of love." Psychologists call this a negative core belief. When love or appreciation is offered later in life, it clashes with that belief and feels unfamiliar, even unsafe. Your brain rejects positive input because it doesn't align with the story it learned early on. As a result, you may crave love deeply, yet struggle to hold it when it's given. Sometimes you might even push away people who treat you well because their kindness feels destabilizing. Third, overachieving or chronic people-pleasing. If love was conditional in childhood, you likely learned that your value came from performance rather than existence. You learned that being useful, successful, perfect, or helpful increased your chances of being accepted. As an adult, this turns into relentless striving. You think, if I do more, give more, achieve more, then I'll finally be lovable. But no matter how much you accomplish, it never feels like enough. That's because you're trying to earn something that should have been given freely. Psychology refers to this pattern as earned security seeking, and it's exhausting. External validation can never fully heal an internal wound. Fourth, emotional numbness or disconnection. When love wasn't safe or available, your brain may have learned to shut down emotional intensity as a form of protection. If you don't feel deeply, you can't be hurt deeply. Over time, this coping strategy becomes emotional blunting. As an adult, you may struggle to access your emotions or feel fully present in relationships. Connections may feel shallow or distant, not because you don't care, but because caring once led to pain. Psychologists describe this as dissociation or emotional numbing, and it's often misunderstood. From the outside, you may seem fine, calm, or functional. Inside, you may feel far away from yourself. And finally, a deep fear of being a burden. If your needs were ignored, dismissed, or treated as inconvenient during childhood, you likely learned to minimize yourself. As an adult, this shows up as constant apologizing, avoiding asking for help, and hiding your struggles. You would rather suffer quietly than risk inconveniencing someone else. Somewhere along the way, you internalize the belief that your needs emotions, or presence were too much. But psychology is very clear about this. Having needs does not make you a burden. It makes you human. The people who made you feel otherwise were wrong, and this belief can be unlearned. If you recognize yourself in any of these patterns, it's important to understand this truth. You are not broken. These behaviors weren't flaws. They were adaptations. They helped you survive a childhood that didn't meet your emotional needs. And recognizing them is not a weakness. It's the first and most important step toward healing. If this kind of psychology deep dive helps you better understand trauma, attachment, and human behavior, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and allows me to keep creating clear, honest content. No fluff, just real insight.